What has happened to our youth? What has happened to our country? Because it's not just Harvard, it's all these Ivy League schools. What has happened? And it's not just the Ivy League. Guys, they're doing this in the local schools, okay? Okay, let's what's your gender today? And kids are sitting there going, wow, like, ooh, hadn't thought of that one before. And they want you to think about this, and they want you to go down these weird tunnels as a little kid and tie you in knots and circles, all so that, on the off chance that the 0.001% of the population that probably is struggling with some mental health issues, and we feel very sorry for them, all because maybe they think they are born in another gender, so that they feel better about themselves. Now you're causing all kinds of other problems. Now suddenly we're willing to say that, what? Like Hitler was right? That's what these kids are saying. Go look at Hamas's charter. Go look at what the Palestinian Authority said in their publication, what all the mullahs around the world should be preaching. I mean, this is bad, but we've lost all sense of who we are. And let me just remind you, I love this woman, Camille Paglia. She's like so left, she's right. I've played you some of this sound before. This is from 2015. And she's talking about what happens to civilizations when they fully lose faith in themselves, which is exactly where we are, where we cannot stand up for what is right versus what is wrong. Where we're like, oh, let the kids talk like that. I mean, you can't put out a Trump sign. No, that's hate speech. But you can condone the murdering of 1,400 innocent people. Come on, here's Camille Paglia. I want you to see this.
Proof of it. But now I began all of my studies. My book Sexual Personae began as a dissertation at Yale graduate school on androgyny. I've always been fascinated, attracted, to the subject of androgyny, and that's what sexual personae is. I explored it in history, but the more I explored it, I realized that that historically, the movement toward androgyny occurs in late phases of culture. Okay, as a civilization is starting to unravel. Okay, and that you can find it again and again and again through history in the Greek art. Okay, you can see it happening. All of a sudden, okay, there's a kind of there's the sculptures of handsome nude young men athletes that used to be very robust. Okay, in the archaic period, suddenly began to seem like wet noodles. Okay, toward the end. Okay, and that the people who live in such periods, a late phase of culture, whether it's the Hellenistic era, whether it's the Roman Empire, whether it's the mauve decade of Oscar Wilde in the 1890s, whether it's Weimar Germany, people who live at such times, okay, feel that they're very sophisticated, they're very cosmopolitan, okay, homosexuality, heterosexuality, so what, anything goes, and so on, all right, and so, but from the perspective of historical distance, okay, you can see that it's a culture that no longer believes in itself, okay, and then what you invariably get are people who are convinced of the power of heroic masculinity, okay, on the edges, whether they're the Vandals and the Huns, okay, or whether they're the barbarians of ISIS, okay, you see them,
I'm just typing to you guys in the group chat, so forgive me. Yes, there it came through, a culture that no longer believes in itself. You heard her, Camille Paglia, say that. I mean, and then what happens? Go through history. It's the Huns. It's, or something like in modern day ISIS. What is this actually really coming to fruition here? We have Hamas, which has been called ISIS on steroids, that's taken over, and somehow we're supposed to bow to them. Somehow we have to adapt to their culture, a culture that doesn't value women, a culture that thinks, hey, you can have 90 wives, a culture that thinks that if you wear a miniskirt, you deserve to get stoned to death, raped. Really? Like that's what we're going to be okay with? I mean, that's what you heard what she said. I mean, she said that in 2015. That's what we're at risk of, ladies and gentlemen, okay? And the Harvard kids are fine with it. And so is Yale and Columbia and Stanford and Cornell. So this is the trickle-down effect. I am so proud of all of the wealthy Jews in America, these billionaires, right? Oh, and did you see Huntsman too? Abby Huntsman used to work with me over at Fox, and John Huntsman is her father. He was the former, by the way, ambassador to China and to Russia. So I bet they have some interesting dinner conversations. Anyway, that's interesting. Hey, Dad, what do you think about China on this one? He's pulling his money, and that's a lot of big oil money, and plenty of others, right? They're all pulling the money out of UPenn, out of Harvard, out of Cornell, out of Columbia. Yes, thank you, because I think that's what it's going to take up. Now, we hate to say we told you so, right? But I think a lot of us, we saw this one coming. CRT, DEI, Black Lives Matter. It's all about the oppressor and the oppressed. And as far as they're concerned, America's the enemy, Israel's the enemy. And anybody who's not Black or brown, and by the way, then you get into some variations, right? Because they're not exactly what you call pro-Asian. Asians are a minority. They're not pro-Indians, right? Asian, you might say, well, they're brown, but no, because you have to be a very specific type in order to qualify as the kind of minority that they believe fits with their narrative. And everybody else, you know what? You got to bow down and kiss the ring. You've got to apologize for being born who you are. You got to apologize for your skin color. And you know what? That really, really makes me mad.